every business is different. That would be the most common thing is every business is different. What someone who does just podcasts does and doesn't sell things, they really don't need insurance because they're not insuring anything. There is nothing really to cover except copyright of what your content is. Someone who has online sales, absolutely, they need their stock covered. Things like who covers the stock or the product once it leaves your shop? Is it still your responsibility or is it the person who bought it?
Hello, my loves, and welcome to Create Your Life. My name is Simone Leah, and I am your host, and I am so excited to be here with you guys today. So today I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Carly Morris from the CLD Insurance Group. Now, Carly is from Australia. She's from Melbourne. So some of what we're saying might not be relevant to some of you guys who are living in different countries, but we are talking all things insurance for online business owners. So I do think this is such an important conversation to be had for everybody, just to get an idea of what's out there, what sort of insurances they could need, what countries they need different insurances in, because there are some things that you may need to go directly to that country for to get insurance for. But in this conversation, we cover the sort of insurances you need if you have a product-based business, a service-based business, and all things in between. And even some things that surprised me, talking about cybersecurity and cyber insurance. So this was an absolutely amazing conversation, and I really hope that it gives you guys an idea of what you need and takes out the aspects of insurance that feel a little bit like you just want to put it off. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes there are some tasks where I'm just like, I don't want to do that today, I'll do it tomorrow. I don't want to do that today, I'll do it tomorrow. And insurance can be one of those topics that can seem a little bit daunting. You don't know what you need, you don't know the process of anything. So having this conversation with Carly today, I hope it shows you that your insurance broker can be like a friend. They can be someone that you have a conversation with. It's an easy conversation, it's not stressful. They just want to help you. So it was a really great conversation, and it really highlighted some of the things that we can consider and do with our insurance and that we should be doing. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview today because I loved bringing it to you. Hello and welcome back to Create Your Life. My name is Simone Leah and I am your host, and I am so excited to be here today with Carly Morris of CLD Insurance Group, and I'm super pumped for this chat because I feel like when you go into being an online entrepreneur, sometimes you just get a little bit caught up in all the fun things like creating the YouTube videos, doing the social media content, and trying to find the answers on what insurance you actually need to cover yourself if you have a YouTube channel, if you have online products, if you do a service. Trying to find those answers can just be that little bit challenging. So I thought it would be really fun to actually have a conversation with someone who knows all about insurance. So welcome, Carly. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, I'm seriously so excited. Like, it's so funny because I don't know, people probably think technical like things can be quite boring, but I'm like, oh, I'm such a nerd for it. So I'm super excited about this because I feel like, as I said, with online business, you just really don't know what you don't know. And so it's really great to have you here and to be able to share your expertise on what we even need to be looking out for, where we even go. Online businesses are now all over the world, so it's pretty.
Absolutely.
But let's start today by asking you, what does creating your ideal life look like? What does creating a life you love look like?
So creating a life for me would be creating a space to be both mum and business owner, where I guess I can provide a life for them as well as creating the income. So things like taking them to sports. I feel sports and outgoing activities are really important for kids growing up. And I just didn't want to jeopardize my own job for having to leave 2 or 3 nights a week early to get them to sports. So the perfect life for me is having that perfect combination of both, being able to do both.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. And I think like same as you, I think it's so important to be able to do the things with your kids while they're kids.
Yes.
You know?
While they're still young and have enjoyment left in them and mum's still the favorite, yeah, now is the time.
Yes, so I absolutely love that. And I know that you said you work remotely as well. So I love that that would also be giving you the freedom to be able to be there when you need to be.
Absolutely. And it also gives me the freedom as well to still work. When they're at sports, laptop goes with me, phone goes with me, assets go with me, and I can work anywhere when I need to. So sometimes working on the fly means getting things done and still being able to meet deadlines and still being mum, still being able to get everything done on time at once. Sometimes chaotic, but we get there.
I love this. I totally, completely love this because not only like obviously what you're telling everyone is so important, but you're also living that entrepreneurial life that we all want as well, and that we're all working towards or living currently. So I love that you're coming from all angles with this today. It's amazing.
And
So
that's the
let's
difference I guess, between me and other brokers too, is I'm actually living that life so I can reflect and I can come from a place of a business owner and show you properly versus just someone who's an employer who doesn't understand the business side of things either.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate that because when you do live that online life, if you don't live it, you don't necessarily know all the ins and outs and what to look for, which I think is why you're probably the perfect person to have this conversation about because you're living that remote online life. You know, you're doing it every day, so you know how we need to protect ourselves.
Yes.
So, I mean, obviously, there's a few things that we can touch on here. Obviously, about the insurances related to people who have online businesses, but then also want to go into kind of some of the things we need to look out for when we have online businesses that sell to other countries. So, let's just have maybe a bit of a start on what sort of things online businesses actually need to be looking out for in terms of insurance, what sort of insurances we need to have.
I'd love to. So I guess the age-old question is, what do I actually need? And every business is different. That would be the most common thing is every business is different. What someone who does just podcasts does and doesn't sell things, they really don't need insurance because they're not insuring anything. There is nothing really to cover except copyright of what your content is. Someone who has online sales, absolutely, they need their stock covered. Things like who covers the stock or the product once it leaves your shop? Is it still your responsibility or is it the person who bought it? But as a seller, you want to make sure that it gets there without being damaged. So that's where a policy like marine cargo is going to come in. So the marine covers the product the moment it leaves your door to the time that it gets delivered to your customers. Someone who gives advice or professional advice is going to need something like a professional indemnity and a public liability policy. So not only do you have your stock, but your advice as well is going to come under the professional indemnity and public liability policies.
Yeah. And is there any sort of crossover or issue, like if you're someone who does energy work, for example, which is different qualifications to say a business coach, for example, are they two separate policies? Or would someone be able to just have the one policy that covers all of the advice they're giving as long as they've got the qualifications to back that up?
Yeah, so you definitely need the qualifications to back it up, but there is specific policies that cover health type of occupations. So anyone who does those type of healing works or energy spaces, they'll have a different policy, which is a little bit of a combination of professional indemnity, public liability, and medical malpractice. So it's all kind of combined into the one specifically tailored for someone who does those type of occupations.
Yeah, amazing. And I suppose if you're working in that work and you do have the YouTube channel and the podcast anyway, at least you've kind of got something for the advice you're sharing in the first place. So if you're doing that sort of work, you're kind of covered a little bit more in that direction.
Of course, yeah. But obviously, yeah, speak to someone professional. But yes, there are policies out there that we can definitely help you with that combine all three to make sure that you're covered in the right way.
Yeah. Now, if you're someone who's putting out digital products, so say, for example, you're putting out ebooks, you're putting out online courses, that sort of thing, what sort of like insurance kind of do you need to look at for those sort of businesses?
Those type of businesses still fall under the public liability aspect as well as the professional indemnity. If it's an advice that you're providing, then you definitely need both policies. Uh, Definitely to start with is your public liability, because that's anything that you've been negligent for or anything you can be held legally liable for. That's that policy that's going to come in and cover you.
Yeah. Yep. So for those sort of products, it's kind of pretty straightforward.
Yes, yes.
Okay, what about if we've got physical products? So obviously we're going to have two avenues here because we're going to have the people who are doing drop shipping where they're not even seeing the product and the people who are sending the product out themselves. What are the types of insurances we would need in those sort of business models?
So the drop shipping one is an interesting one because that comes back to where are they getting the products from. If you're sourcing the product from outside Australian waters, if you're based in Australia, that is, and you're sourcing that product from outside Australia, you are then deemed the manufacturer. So you need to get a product or a policy that covers you as a manufacturer and as the sales. If you're shipping it directly from inside Australia, then you're just becoming the sales. So you just cover the product whilst it's in Australian waters.
Yeah.
But then there's the opposite side where you're shipping it outside Australia and you're doing exports. So for exports, that's a whole different line again. You need to get public liability as well for exports and make sure that that tagline is actually included, because a lot of people think that they've got public liability, but exports is a separate section. So that's something that you need to tell your insurance provider and make sure that they add it in. It's the same with imports as well. Imports needs to be an additional item that you need to add into the policy.
Yeah. And is
That
there a
sounds very complicated.
Yes, it really does. I'm like, oh my goodness, lucky I don't import and export. So
Yeah.
is there a difference? So obviously we're talking about drop shipping. If I was just selling things from my garage, is that going to be similar insurance to the drop shipping insurance?
Yes, it would be. If the products are coming from outside Australia, then yeah, you're deemed the manufacturer.
Okay, so it's
You're
more
not
about
reselling.
where the products are coming and going from, as opposed
Correct.
to whether they're drop shipped or sold from your house. Yeah, see,
Yes.
that's so interesting. Yeah,
And it's the same with items at your house. Most home and contents policies don't cover business items.
yeah. I mean, that was probably a bad example, but where if you're selling them from wherever you live in terms of like
Yes.
the city.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's really interesting. I actually really appreciate learning and hearing about all of that because I think that when you do start selling, like you think, oh, I'm just going to sell candles at the local market. And then someone is like, oh, can you ship me candles to my sister in a different state? You know, it's nice to know what sort of insurances you need to start covering that sort of stuff. And then someone wants you to ship them to their mum who's in a different country. And, you know, it's interesting
Yes.
to start hearing about the way that all of that needs to work. And is this a scary first thing? Is this a scary thing for people when they start looking into insurance? Is it as scary as it can sound?
Absolutely. It's so daunting. There is like a plethora of information on the internet. It is very daunting for a new beginner, someone who's just starting, doesn't understand what they need, doesn't understand the terminology or the jargon that insurance companies use. It can be very daunting and stressful.
Yeah, I think this is why we need people.
Yes.
Don't do
Yeah.
your own insurance policy.
Yeah, sometimes they take you down a deep, dark wormhole that you don't get out of, and you're more confused than when you started.
Yes, exactly. All right, so now if we're going to a global scale. So
Yes.
obviously we're looking at running online businesses. Does anything change if something happens overseas? So for example, if I take my policy out in Australia and then something happens with my digital product from someone in Germany and they're like something, 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 am I still covered under my Australian policy?
This is where it gets a little bit more interesting and fun. So in short answer is yes. However, it depends on where the product is and which insurer. Some insurers, or generally speaking, most insurers will exclude USA and Canada. So they're the two main countries that no one wants to deal with. If it's anywhere else in the world, usually your public liability policy will kick in.
So how do you get that coverage? Because if you're someone who's selling digital products, so for example, you're selling courses, the main target market you're going to sell to is probably the US.
Correct. So that is something that you would need to source from the US directly, or you'll have to go to what we class as an open market in Australia. So us as brokers, we have access to these things, and some of the insurers can add them on for us.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So
that's
it's all about communication. It's all about just discussing it with your broker, and that way we can put the right stuff in place for you.
yeah. Yeah, so that's really good. Does it change? Like,
Yeah.
because obviously that was specifically targeted to digital products. Does that same apply if it's a physical product?
Correct. Yeah. So the same rules apply. Usually the public liability policies are global coverage. Some of them, the smaller ones, are only limited to Australia. So we've got to disclose it and alter it to suit. Otherwise, yeah, USA and Canada are usually excluded.
Yeah. Okay, that's so interesting. Now, what about, okay, I'm going to throw some random ones at you here. What
Go
about
for it.
what about things like if you're someone who's creating and selling NFTs? Is that like got its own thing or does it still count as a digital product?
Completely different. There is very, very, very limited insurers because of its volatility. There's very limited insurers that will touch that one.
Yep. Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of all the online businesses that the audience might be doing. What about things like if you're getting to that level where you're becoming an influencer and other companies are selling you products, are sending you products and things like that. Is there anything to protect you against? I mean, I suppose our audience is always going to be acting with integrity, so they're never going to have any problems. But I'm just trying to think if there's any way to cover any sort of issues in that sort of relationship. But I feel like, again, that's just going to be your normal business insurance, really, and dealing with customers and suppliers, and that's just going to be normal.
Normal business dealings, correct. Yeah, but that's where a PR person would probably step in and manage that on your behalf.
Yeah. So I feel like that's
Usually everyone's pretty happy and friendly and nice, so it doesn't have to.
I think so. Like, I feel like most of this, I'm like, I'm trying to come up with the questions that I would want to know depending on the businesses. But I'm like, you know what? I feel like most of our audience is pretty good, and they're always going to go into things with openness and yeah, like that integrity of trying to do the right thing. So so yeah, I feel like that's pretty good there. So if someone wanted to go to an insurance broker and they're literally looking at setting up a policy, how does all of that process work?
It can be sometimes drawn out, but usually we simplify it for you. So the main things that we want to know from an insurance broker's perspective is what your business is, what you do, who you're selling to. Little things like staff and turnover will come into account as well. But I guess it's our job to deep dive into your business and tell you what you need. There's a few little misconceptions where people assume that contents covers things everywhere. So when you set your office up and you have it nicely decked out, you've got the beautiful vases, you've got the beautiful desks and features, they need to be covered separately if you take them home. So little tricks of the trade is for us is ask lots of questions and we can get you set up properly.
Yeah, that actually is a great thing to bring up there. So if you are working from home as opposed to an office, what do you need to do in terms of insurance?
Definitely need to change it. So if it's a business item, most home and contents policies don't cover it. So your options are you can try and have it covered under your existing home and contents. You just need to disclose it. The issues usually are they limit it to either $2,500 or some of the high ones is 5,000, which in essence sometimes when you take into account your desks, your laptop, your mouse, your speakers, your screens, your printer, all of those things, they add up very quickly. So sometimes that's usually not enough coverage.
Yeah.
And then the other problem you have is if you're one of the people like me, we take our business everywhere. So my laptop comes with me, you pack it up in your bags and everything goes off with you in the car, that's when you need to also change it as well. So we need to change the policy so your items are covered outside the house and global. Like me,
Yeah.
if you take it overseas with you on holidays, you want it covered too.
Yeah, well that was actually what I was about to ask you then. What is the difference between like someone like myself who literally doesn't even have a home office? There's literally no office. It's just me and my things. And, you know, so you're not even insuring the contents to an actual place. You're just insuring the contents. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So there's another little section under the business policy that's not contents, that covers your contents and your business items. So it's all about restructuring the policy and making sure that you've got that coverage in place. So contents only covers it in that physical address that you list.
Yeah.
So it doesn't cover it anywhere else outside the house, outside that address. So if you have it listed, say, as home, it's only covered home. If you have it in an office, it's only covered in the office.
Yeah. I would love to know how has insurance changed for the digital nomad, because obviously some of us we don't have a home base anymore. How has that kind of changed the way insurance policies have worked, and are they becoming more personalized?
I would love to say they are, but unfortunately, it hasn't quite changed as much as you would assume or would want it to change. It's still very old school mentality, and it stayed the same. It stayed rigid, and we just have to work around it. So, uh, contents, for example, that one hasn't changed. Whereas you would assume that that would cover or extend to cover you, whether that be home or office. But unfortunately, it hasn't really changed. And I think it's definitely due for an upgrade.
Yeah, definitely 100%, especially since the whole world is going online now.
Absolutely. And it's the same with working from home. It just needs to roll with the times.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I'm so interested to see like what some of those changes could even be, just to make it easier. Like as you said, you need something separate because you work from home, you work from, wherever you go, and you're still just in the same city, let
Yeah.
alone someone who's literally like, I'm in this country today, next week I'm in a different country. Do I need insurances for different countries? Does the one policy cover all my countries? Like,
Yeah, travel insurance needs to kick in and hope for the best.
yes, that's exactly it. And if someone did come and see you as an insurance broker, are you specifically targeted to business insurance, or can you do travel insurance as well?
I do travel insurance, but it is limited to a business policy. So your personal travel, I don't unfortunately help you with. I'll point you in the right direction, but my company can't do that for you. If it's a business perspective or business and personal travel, that's where we can definitely help you.
Yeah. So that's so good. So it means anyone with any business things can just come and chat to you, and then you'll just sort them right out. Doesn't matter where they live, what sort of products they have.
Absolutely. One-stop shop. Any business insurance or landlord insurance or investments, life, income protection, all of those things we can help you with.
Yeah. What sort of things do you think online entrepreneurs need to be aware of and need to know in advance?
They definitely need a cyber policy because cyber is quite prevalent recently, especially since COVID, with a lot of people bored at home. If they're taking payments or they're sharing personal information or having their computer wide open, that is definitely something that they need to look at. Cyber has just increased tenfold in the past 2 years.
Yeah. And for all of us who don't know what that would look like, what is cyber policies actually protecting you against?
Cyber policies is protecting someone hacking into your computer and either locking it down so you can't access it, or things like if they change the bank details on invoices and you pay the wrong people, or they get into your account and send fake links, and you pay different people.
Yeah.
So it's loss of income, loss of wages, and also hacking, just in case your computer does get locked down. The cyber policy usually kicks in, finds the hackers, and either pays the ransom, or hopefully you've got backups and will restore the backups for you. So they'll pay IT people to come in and look at it all for you and either restore it or help you get it back up and running.
Yeah, wow. Honestly, that is like the golden thing that I've like did not even see that coming. Because when you say cyber, I literally just assume we're talking about payments. So the fact that you're
Yeah,
like, people can literally hack your computer and shut it down so you can't open it anymore. It's like my heart is sad. Like my computer is my best
yeah,
friend. I work on my computer all the time. Like the fact that people would do that, I'm like, why would anyone be so mean? So
yeah. They steal your database, they'll steal all your client files. Sometimes they'll release it on the dark web, which you definitely don't want because that's a little bit of a nightmare. No one really wants to be embarrassed to have to call all their clients and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry, your all your personal information that I've held, so your email, your phone number, your address has now just been sold on the dark web, and some random person has it. I'm so sorry." Not
yeah.
a conversation to have. So that's where the cyber policy is really good, really prevalent, and something that is definitely out there to protect you.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really, really great one. Because, yeah, like I said, I wouldn't have even thought of that for anything other than payments. So, yeah, that to me, I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. So, that is great.
Yeah,
What other things do you think online entrepreneurs need to be looking out for? Or is that the main sort of thing?
that's the main one. Yeah, because they're online based, they're very remote. Other than having their items covered remotely or wherever they go, it's covered. And the cyber one is the main things that they need.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's amazing. And if someone wanted to learn more about like this sort of thing, do you have any resources that they could look at?
Uh, on hand, no. Actually, usually it's done back of house training or through authorized training providers. You've got to go through certificates and degrees, and that's where you kind of learn it. Otherwise, it's all product knowledge that you gather along the way.
Yep. Okay. So the best thing to do is talk to someone.
Unfortunately, yeah, there's only so much that you can read on online, and sometimes it's not always accurate. And there's over 100 insurers at the moment. There's about 250 on my panel, and I don't have everyone, so yeah, all of them are different. So your best, yeah, just to talk to someone because for us, we stay up to date with what's in the market and what the new insurers are providing versus you having to Google every single one of them, and there'll be agencies that you've never heard of before that
Yeah.
we're quite on good terms with.
Yeah. And do you just work with Australian entrepreneurs, or if someone came to you from New Zealand or Europe or America, would you be able to help them get a great product?
Depends where they're actually based and what their product is. If it's Australian, then yes, but predominantly, yeah, it'll only be Australia based that I deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Australians, call Carly.
Boy, yes, I've come here for you.
Yes, she is definitely amazing. She obviously knows all of these things that we need to know, especially I think that when you are in Australia, this is my experience, you feel like you're in your little world and everything is so safe. And then you like go overseas and you're like, wow, there's a whole other world out here. It's so different.
Yeah,
So yeah, having
yeah.
someone to talk to like yourself who is working online, does work remotely, and does have an online business that they can help you know the ins and outs of. I'm personally, for me, I just think that's so invaluable to surround myself with the people who are doing what I'm doing but have that next level of knowledge about it, if that makes sense. Like obviously I don't know, you know, when it comes to insurance. So having someone who's living my sort of life but knows all the ins and outs of that, it's amazing. So
Yeah, it's definitely a different perspective when you're the business owner seeing it from a business owner's perspective versus an employee. I guess, and the good thing with running my business is I understand that sometimes things run over time. Sometimes you're late. So we don't just necessarily say, oh, 5 o'clock, we're done, don't call me, or it's the weekend, don't call me. We're pretty much available most of the time, even on weekends and even after hours, because sometimes that's where your best work happens. That's the only time that you've got time to work on your business. So from that aspect, I get it, I understand it, and that's where I can be there for you as well.
you know, I love that because for me, creating a life I love does mean working on my schedule. And a lot of the
Yeah,
time, my schedule involves days off during the week because I don't like it when there's lots of, like, I like to do things when it's quite chilled out and quite relaxed. And weekends tend to have a lot of people, you know, like if whether I'm living somewhere or traveling, there's more people around on the weekends. So I'm always working on the weekends and I choose to do that. So even just
of
having
course.
that the fact that you understand that sort of, all right, well, sometimes we work weekends, sometimes we work, around the kids, sometimes we work around, family stuff, or, like it's really nice to connect with someone who understands.
Yeah, that I guess that again comes back to being a business owner as well. I completely get it. Sometimes you burn out during the week, or Mondays you're just tired from running kids around, doing sports, doing late night things, trying to catch up with friends. It just doesn't work. So sometimes all same it's the opposite. So all week you're running around, and by Saturday that's your downtime to stop work, stop your Monday to Friday 9 to 5 and work things out. And sometimes you'll have questions pop into your head, like you'll be Googling things and go, oh my gosh, what does that mean? I have no idea what this means. And then you're stressing because maybe your product goes live and they have to sort it. That's where we kick in, and we'll answer the phone on a Saturday or answer emails for you, just
Yeah.
to give you that peace of mind and to give you that rest that you desperately need,
Yes.
especially as a business owner. You take it where you can get it.
Yes. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I suppose I do just want to touch on this quickly because I don't think everyone lives kind of the way I live. Um, so I have literally not seen my accountant in more than 10 years. I don't know if the audience knows this, but I grew up in Victoria, and then I lived in New South Wales for a while, then I lived in Queensland for a while. And literally, when it comes to accountants, lawyers, everything, I never actually physically go in and see them. So with you and with your business, you're completely open to just dealing with everything remotely via emails and Zoom and phone conversations?
Absolutely. This is the beauty of Zoom. So I don't need to be there. I can be there, and I'm more than happy to fly up to wherever you are, because I know life gets busy, work is busy. For you to come inside it. But if not, we can do it all remotely. It can be done after hours via email. It can be done over the phone. We can FaceTime, we can Zoom, whatever you need. We're fully adaptable.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much because I think that's the thing is like people are always like, I have to go to the accountant. I'm like, why are you going to the accountant? Like, I love my accountant, but I'm like, I just call him up once a year and be like, yo, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And then the rest is
Yeah.
email, you know? So I love that you offer people that flexibility to be able to do the same, which means, guys, if you are in Queensland or New South Wales or the Northern Territory or, Western Australia, South Australia, Tasmania, you can actually still work with Carly. And for me personally, as an online entrepreneur, I do prefer to surround myself with the right people, and it has never particularly concerned me with which location they live in. I would prefer to work with the right person in a different state or country than work with the wrong person who I can see who lives 10 minutes down the road. So I do think that's also like another what I would consider pro tip for everyone listening is to just make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people and not necessarily get so caught up on where they're based. Like Carly is an online entrepreneur. She literally sees and understands and gets you, so dealing with her
And don't
is
be afraid to ask. That's the other thing I find with new people is they feel like they're in that space of, oh, I'm too shy to ask, or too scared to ask because I'm going to be sounding stupid. There's no silly questions. We've all been there. We've all started. There's no silly questions. Ask anything you need to.
yes. And guys, I really hope I've done that for you. I've really tried today to put my like brain on for things that like, I would, because there's obviously I know some of the answers to these questions. I have insurance, but I've like really tried to think of all the things that you guys would ask to try and take that pressure off you because I remember how much I was like when I first started, I was like, do I need insurance for this? Do I need insurance for this? What do I need insurance for? And even guys, just to bring up the YouTube channel and podcast insurance, it took me so long to realize there's no insurance for that. And in the back of my mind, I was stressed out the whole time going, what if someone sues me for my content or whatever? Because every content creator that I talk to, we're talking people with huge followings and making a lot of money. They were all like, no, I don't have any insurance for YouTube or my podcast or whatever. So I really hope, guys, that today's interview has given you a bit more of an understanding of what your insurance can look like and has taken the pressure off some of those questions for you because it's a lot, like it's daunting.
It is, yeah, definitely is. And especially starting out, there are so many things that you've got to think of, and be across. Insurance is always the last one that you think of.
Well, I think it might even be one you think of, but it's definitely the one you put off.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like it's definitely the one that's like, oh, this is going to be like pulling teeth. And I really feel like talking to you, Carly, that it's not like pulling teeth with you. I
No.
feel I was picturing like, I don't know, something different, I guess, when I think about insurance. And so like it's not like pulling teeth. It's just like having a chat, guys, with a friend who knows more than you do about this particular topic and can literally point you in the right direction, which is what I love about this conversation because I feel like this
Yeah.
is really helping a lot of people.
Absolutely, and don't hesitate to ask or just give me a call. If I can't help you, then I'll just put you in the right direction because there's some things that I won't be able to do. But again, it's just a conversation. So yeah, just give me a call and we'll talk it through. If we can't fix it, then we'll work something out.
Yes. I love that. And I think also just to um, wrap this up a little bit, the main top tip would be talk to Carly.
Yeah.
But,
Yep.
but do you have any final things you would like to say to the audience today?
Um, Not at the moment, other than yeah, talk to a professional and don't be afraid to ask anything. There's no silly questions.
Yep. I absolutely love that because yes, definitely I felt silly. So
Yeah,
so
no
I
such
love
thing as
that.
feeling silly.
Okay, guys, well, I'm definitely 100% obviously going to be sharing all of Carly's details below the video, below the podcast. Her details you'll be able to find them. She's got a great website. You'll be able to get in contact with her easily, quickly, no problems at all. So I would jump on that for sure. But thank you so much, Carly. It has been so amazing
All
having
right.
you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it.
Yay, I've
Hopefully,
got
I've helped people out there and hopefully it gives them a little bit more peace of mind.
I think you've definitely 100% helped just getting our heads around what all the options are. And especially for people who do have businesses that have multiple parts, like, they have a physical book, plus they have a digital
Yeah.
product, plus they have a course, plus they have a coaching program. So, and plus they travel. So starting to get that understanding of what we need, I think has been really invaluable today. And I feel like you've definitely really probably cleared up and helped a lot of people just get that beginner understanding.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Will do. Thank you.